I told y'all I'm gonna start dressing to match the vibe of the matches I'm talking about. And I'm just all crazy, of course, because we witnessed a crazy match in the Roland Garros final between Alcaraz and Sinner. And watching that got my heart rate all messed up, and clearly, I just don't know how to act right now. Carlos Alcaraz pulled off arguably the greatest slam victory in tennis history to win Roland Garros on Sunday. Alcaraz won a 5-hour, 29-minute thriller, defeating Jannik Sinner 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6. This is the longest Roland Garros final in history, and is the second longest final period in the Open era, after Nadal and Djokovic's Australian Open 2012 final. For Carlos to claim his first ever win from 2-0 down, to do it in a slam final, saving 3 match points against the world number 1 nonetheless, that's just some legendary ish right there. Bonjour, je m'appelle Christian Basnight, and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I post more content. I saw quite a few reporters when talking about this match say that the first few sets or so were flat, and the match itself, it did start out strong in my opinion for the first few games, to be honest. Sinner saved 5 break points in his first 2 service games, and that showed why he only got broken 3 times coming into this final, because bro is just so clutch. But keeping up his clutchness against Carlos is just a different story. Alcaraz came out and returned phenomenally for the first few games, and it was ultimately rewarded with getting the first break of the entire match at 3-2. However, Jannik was also returning at a high level, and he broke right back to level it at 3-all, and this is when I noticed that first big shift in Sinner serving as he elevated it another notch. I felt like he freed up a little bit after he broke back, and he started going for more on the first serve, and it was working. From 3-all on, Sinner didn't face a single break point until he served for the second set at 5-3, where he got broken. Jannik did better to have a higher first serve percentage, and he also had aggressive intentions behind both the first and second serve, and he had a lot of success too with coming forward to the net. He won 71% of his net points in the first 2 sets, and that is great, especially against someone who passes as well as Carlos does. The clay also got in Carlos's eye at some part in the first set, and he needed to seek medical attention for that, serving down 4-5 right before he got broken to lose that first set. I don't know if maybe that was the reason for his shots misfiring like that in that 4-5 game, but he did let Jannik off the hook really badly with some baffling errors to lose serve and to lose the opening set. He definitely should have held that game for sure. Alcaraz was a bit charitable with some of his return misses, especially for the early part of the second set, and he was very frustrated like mad with his team. Jannik, meanwhile, he was continuing to dominate for most of the shorter rallies. It was 29-14 in Jannik's favor of points won, between it being 1-4 shots in rallies in the opening set at least. And it was a similar story for a good part of the second set too. This match really looked like it could be a straight sets one in Sinner's favor, especially with him leading 6-4, 5-2. Although things were tighter than what it seemed, as this was only a break deficit that Carlos was down. Carlos did step up though from 5-3 on. He broke back and he forced it to a breaker, but in that tiebreaker, Sinner simply was just too good. Jannik very well could have won this match in straight sets. I think he felt the nerves though early on in this third set, and he showed that he is human. He's not some superhuman robot god at tennis. Jannik did break immediately in the third set, and that one love game was crucial in Jannik's bid to try to consolidate that early break. Sinner had 30 love in this one love game, and he also had 40-30, a game point to consolidate, but he just narrowly missed shots. Then Sinner had 40-15 at 1-2, and he had some more just not good unforced errors, and he ultimately got broken in that game. Jannik was not doing himself any favors either with the lower first serve percentage. It was around 49-50% for the second and third sets. Jannik was able to get away with serving at 51% in the semifinal against Novak, but Carlos is just a different story right now. Alcaraz served for the third set at 5-3, but Jannik managed to get the break to put it back on serve. Sinner did struggle with his first serve in this 4-5 game, but you got to give full credit to Carlos. That was his best returning game of the entire match. Carlos broke at love to win the third set, and that snapped Jannik's streak of winning 31 consecutive sets at the slam level. Also thought Carlos's backhand was actually a better shot than Sinner's backhand in the third set, and that backhand down the line especially won him a lot of points. I feel like Sinner peeped this a little bit though, and he took some of Carlos's nachos for set number 4, and he started taking the backhand up the line more, which helped him get that break at 3-all. Jannik was really in his mood at this point. He was like in full stride from 3-all to 3-5, love 40 on, where he had triple championship points. Now, in the post-match press conference, when speaking about those championship points, Jannik said that he personally didn't feel like he gave Carlos any free points. Now, I'm going to let y'all be the judge of that. The first one was kind of a forced error. Can't really fault him for that. The second one, Jannik missed a very makeable backhand return long. Yes, the kick from Carlos was a little bit jumping, but still, Jannik shouldn't have missed that. And then the third one, it was just, I think it was an unforced error from Jannik from the forehand wing. Not gonna lie, I had my tweet all planned out. I thought this match was done and dusted, even though it was on Carlos's serve. Because again, Sinner he was just returning so well. And Carlos, he did his big one. He finished that 5-3 game with an ace and then a forehand down the line, getting the crowd all hype. But even still, when he held, I thought that Jannik would likely serve it out, especially because, yes, Carlos did have the momentum and he was getting hype, but he has gotten hype before and trying to use the crowd to his advantage and then still lose, like he did against Botic van de Zandschulp at the U.S. Open last year. You know, in this 5-4 game, I don't really think Sinner choked, to be honest. The first point that he lost, it was somewhat of a forced forehand error. The second point he lost, it was a missed forehand long. It wasn't a bad miss at all. He was trying to force the issue. The third point he lost was just a brilliant point from Carlos, who finished it off with a volley winner. And the fourth one was an excellent inside-out Carlos forehand, which forced the Sinner error. The only critique I have for Jannik in that 5-4 game was, again, the serve. He could have made life better for himself in making more first serves and more strong first serves. Even despite Sinner leading 2-love in the fourth set tiebreaker, Carlos was just playing some really godly tennis. He hit 3 straight winners to come back and lead at 3-2 in the tiebreaker. One was a forehand cross winner and then 2 aces, I think back to back. Now, when he was down 3-4, Jannik missed some 2 backhands long. Those were some poor errors on his end. But Carlos finished it clean with the beautiful forehand return, picking it early, and then with the forehand winner to close out that fourth set to bring it into a fifth set deciding shootout. For the next 20-30 minutes, Carlos really was riding high on momentum, and it showed through his game, and that's why he broke right off the bat in the fifth set. I was really surprised that Jannik did not leave the court after losing the fourth set. I would have, because there's no way I would have let Carlos had all that momentum, but I guess that's really great sportsmanship on Jannik to not do that and to stay on court and to play it out. So props to him for that. I think Jannik felt it a tad more physically than Carlos did. I don't think he was struggling that bad, but definitely when we were comparing the fresher of the two who looked like more springy, I think it was Carlos. And I think a lot of that was due to the momentum that he had. And Sinner definitely was dejected after losing those championship points. Jannik had a few break-back looks at 2-1, although I feel like at that game, Alcaraz was just too good in saving them off. But Jannik did strike right at the last minute when Carlos tried to serve for it at 5-4. And then Sinner came within 2 points of the win, being up 6-5, 30-15, and that was on Carlos' serve. In that 15-30 point, Jannik missed a forehand long, kind of routine. That's kind of not a great error, but that 30-all point was epic from Alcaraz. Sinner had him on the ropes with an incredible return, and I don't know how in the world Carlos turned it from defense to attack like that. That was so clutch, and that point really won him the match. The tiebreaker, it reminded me a lot of the Beijing final from last year between these two, as it was just another level from Alcaraz that Sinner simply couldn't match. And the way that Carlos finished the match with that forehand down the line pass was just the cherry on top. Like, that was truly the perfect finish for this match. This was really reminiscent, this match was, of their 2022 US Open quarterfinal. And it was so eerie because listening to the world feed, like they foreshadowed low-key the outcome of this match. The commentators were saying, you know, we were in the booth for that 5-hour, 20-something minute quarterfinal at the US Open between them when Sinner had match points in the fourth set. And here we are again. It was a 5+ hour thriller where Sinner had match points in the fourth set. And this is the third 5-set match that Jannik has lost to Carlos, which is heartbreaking for Sinner. And this one will be even more heartbreaking considering how he had championship points for the whole title. For sure, the 5-set factor played a role in Carlos winning this match. And I mentioned that in my preview, and that's ultimately why I decided to go with Carlos. Although for much of the match, I was low-key, I have to be honest, I was low-key regretting my preview. And because of how well Jannik was playing. And I feel like with this one, you predict either Jannik winning this one in 3-4 sets or Carlos winning it in 5. It's kind of hard to predict Sinner taking this in 5 sets, even though he was very close, coming within 2 points of winning the match. I think an interesting stat, like watching this, I think it was from Stuart Fraser, is that Jannik was 0-6 in matches, 0-6 in matches that were longer than 3 hours and 50 minutes. And Carlos, I think he only lost one match in that long distance type of span. I think everyone knew that if this match went 5, Alcaraz would be the favorite, as he is the new king of 5-set matches, holding a now 13-1 5-set record. Alcaraz's coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, said afterwards in the coach's press conference that he thinks Carlos was born to play these types of matches, and it's the complete opposite with Jannik, who just dominates most of his matches and is very methodical. And that's the beauty of this rivalry. Just while they might be similar in some aspects of their game, how they go about their tennis is completely different. And I think that Jannik, considering how he is not used to grinding like this, and considering how he hadn't even lost a set in this tournament leading up to the final, I think he did a good job, especially when you consider, too, that this is just his second tournament back from his suspension. I think that this just showed, too, why Carlos dominated their tiebreakers in both the Beijing final and here. He just rises to the occasion and is just more built for these type of moments, simple as that. Now, briefly having a discussion about the overall 5-set format itself, it's really something. Like, the match was, again, 5.5 hours long, and I had to rewatch the whole thing because, again, 5 sets is a lot. Like, that's why I'm a little bit late in coming out with this video, because when I make my analysis, I want to delve really deep. So I had to rewatch the match again just to really immerse myself in it, you know. And it went on from morning to then afternoon. It literally takes away your whole day. And there were some conversations about whether women should play 5 sets in the finals and why maybe some women's matches aren't as memorable because they aren't 5 sets. And I understand that point, but on the other hand, for me, overall, I enjoy, best of 3 set tennis a little bit more, because while we do have these epic, like, classic matches like Alcaraz Sinner, I just think that still it's just a lot. And sometimes my attention span, even though while I love tennis, it's hard for me sometimes to stay like locked in. But yeah. But anyways, now that the analysis is done, I can take off this silly getup and get down to business. I want to talk about Alcaraz's comments on the comeback and what he said. He said, honestly, when he broke my serve at the beginning of the 3rd set, I felt like everything was at his favor. I felt like every shot he was hitting was going to be in. He was going to make winners and not mistakes, hitting by the frame, going to the line. That was my feeling at the beginning of the 3rd set. I tried to delete those thoughts from my mind and just try to keep going, to try to fight all the time. Obviously, the crowd and the people were really important to me today. The whole crowd were amazing, but there were really few corners of the crowd that were really, really helpful for me, which I appreciate. But yeah, without them, it probably would have been impossible to come back. So, I mean, I feel like Carlos, he probably would have won this match regardless anywhere else where they played, because I feel like he's such a fan favorite. This is real. This is me being real. It's not me being biased, but Carlos simply is the people's favorite compared to Jannik. And I even saw on Twitter that Clostebol and Doper were trending, which is unfortunate, but it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. People were rooting for Carlos to win, especially within Roland Garros, and I think too it was the dynamic of them wanting Carlos to even come back and win this match and make it more of a competitive affair. Because once things were tight again, a few more people were cheering for Jannik, but I'd say overall they wanted Carlos to win this match. Now, the question is this the greatest comeback of all time, and is this the greatest final of all time? I don't know if it's a definitive yes for either of those questions, but I do believe this match deserves to be in the conversation for both those topics. I think that this final is better for sure than Wimbledon 2023. I saw some people saying that this was the best final since that final, but no, this surpasses it. In terms of comebacks, especially in Slam finals, I think that Novak Djokovic Wimbledon 2019 rivals it. It's up there with it, because Novak, he saved his 2 championship points against Roger when Roger was serving. Meanwhile, Alcaraz, he had the advantage with him serving down love 40 still. But then you can argue that it was still a little bit tougher for Carlos because he was down 2-1 at that point. And then he was down 2-love in a break anyways, but regardless, focusing on the whole match point aspect of it, he still had to break Jannik's serve after that. So that comeback might be above Djokovic's Wimbledon 2019 comeback in my opinion. I think Nadal's comeback from 2-love down and being down love 40 at 2-3, that's up there too, especially considering how Nadal was 35 at the time and coming back from that injury layoff for sure. I think that's in the conversation, but I think still for me, this might be number one. It might be above that one for me, but let me know in the comments if you think there are any other comebacks in Slam finals that could rival what we saw and witnessed with Alcaraz. As far as greatest Slam finals period to rival it, I think it was 1980 Borg McEnroe final. I know a lot of people talk about that. I haven't watched that. Wimbledon 2008, of course, between Federer and Nadal. I haven't really watched that in full, being totally honest. And I hate to say it too, but I have not watched the Djokovic-Nadal Australian Open 2012 match in its complete entirety. So I have to watch those matches and come back to you for those. I do not think that the 2017 Australian Open final should be in the conversation at all. That match is overhyped. I hate to say it, but it is true. That match was not as good as some of y'all are making it out to be. I have to admit, when watching this match, I was thinking about Dino Medvedev and how this might be karma, because of course Medvedev led Jannik by 2-love in the 2024 Australian Open final before the Italian clawed his way back and won. And now Sinner's on the receiving end of a heartbreaking loss. This is even more heartbreaking just considering how Jannik again had all those championship points. And I feel for him, especially because he could have won this match in straight sets. He played so good this tournament, and we can't underestimate just how brilliant this is from Jannik to do this well in just his second tournament since that suspension. That's like ungodly. And to make back-to-back finals too, both Rome and Roland Garros, clay is not his particularly strongest surface. That's a testament to just how good this man is. Like truly, Alcaraz is his only kryptonite, because since the start of 2024, Jannik is 91-3 against other people not named Carlos Alcaraz. Meanwhile, he's now 0-5 against Alcaraz. Honestly speaking, I have the feeling that Jannik will end up with more majors than Carlos when their careers are said and done, because I feel like Carlos will be more susceptible to surprise upsets in these slams. Jannik is more even-keeled. And as long as they don't face off in slam finals, Jannik and Carlos, Jannik will always be favored to win these slams, I feel. And still, he's right there neck and neck with Carlos as is, because he obviously could have won Roland Garros having all those match points. You know, Rome was tough. He had set points in the first set. You never know how the match could have played out if he converted those set points. And then he also had his chances in the Beijing final. I think it's more mental than anything else. And it's crazy to me just how the dynamic changed, because before it was Carlos being top dog and Jannik was the one known for being one of the only players to consistently figure out Carlos. But now he's lost his last 5 matches to Carlos, and this one is again going to sting for a long time, and maybe it could perhaps scar him in future matches that he has with Alcaraz whenever it comes time to close out the match. I think he should be fine against other players. I wouldn't be surprised if he won Wimbledon and the US Open, for real. And I do think that this will not be his only opportunity to have a good look at completing the calendar slam. I could see him actually do it for sure. Now, talking about the king right now, Carlos Alcaraz, man, what to even say? What to even say about the young buck? To do this at 22 years old, like, wow. Carlos is the same exact age down to the days and the months of Rafael Nadal when he won his 5th slam, and this is of course Carlos's 5th slam. And Alcaraz is now 5-0 in slam finals. Jannik is also very clutch at the stage. He was 3-0 coming into this one, but like, this is just on another level. The way that Alcaraz raises his level like this in the big stage is incredible. And Carlos is now the 3rd man in the Open era to save a match point in a slam final en route to winning it. The other 2 were Gaston Gaudio in 2004 and then Novak Djokovic in 2019. I gotta clock the Alcaraz fans, because there was a strong narrative amongst that fan base that Carlos was in the slumps and in the trenches after the Australian Open. They were really talking ill on his name, saying that he had a loser mentality. And it was really bad, especially when he lost to David Goffin in Miami in like the opening round for Carlos. Even though Alcaraz did pick up a title in Rotterdam, I have to say it wasn't necessarily the best period for him. The Australian Open quarterfinal loss to Novak Djokovic was tough, but Alcaraz, he maintained that he would figure it out. And despite many of his fans really getting on him about this, he just remained positive. And he revealed in multiple interviews and through the Netflix docuseries that he goes about it just trying to find the joy in tennis. That's what makes him so good, and that's what makes him so beloved, because we can see the joy radiating from him whenever he's out there competing like that. And that's ultimately what brought him back in this match. And he said it himself too. If this match was played, especially in Italy, he wouldn't have won this match because the crowd would have been fully for Jannik. They would not have cheered for Carlos to come back and win this match. So for him to not feed into all the BS of, oh, Carlos is washed at 22, and to recover like that, win Monte Carlo, really dominate the clay season, even though he lost in the Barcelona Open final. And credit to my guy Holger, he played a strong match. A lot of that was due to Alcaraz not being 100% physically. And then, of course, winning Rome, not playing per se his best tennis, but still bringing his best when he needed it against Jannik in the final. Same can be said in the Roland Garros final. That just shows that he really is the new king of clay. Like, bow down to the king. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this tournament, aside from the brilliance of Carlos Alcaraz, is that really Sinner and Alcaraz, they rule the ATP right now by far. They have won the last 6 slams, and it's a matter of who can threaten their dominance, because it's not like they're going to have a complete chokehold on 1000s. I mean, maybe they might, especially with Jannik being more methodical on the non-clay 1000s compared to Alcaraz, but I think as far as challenging them for the slams, it's going to be even tougher because they thrive in the best of 5 format, especially Alcaraz. It's just going to be so difficult. As far as people who can consistently threaten them, I mean, Jack Draper, if he can work out some kinks, especially in the forehand whenever things get tight for him, maybe him. I think that if Joao Fonseca can continue to make improvements, it might take him a few more years, but maybe he can form a new, I hate comparing, but a new big 3. I don't know, but for now at least, I think for the next few years, I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to really dominate. Novak Djokovic, I hate to say it, but is looking like he's on his way out. Alexander Zverev, like, I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe Holger Rune, Lorenzo Musetti, those two could, if they elevate themselves. They got to do a lot more work physically, but perhaps those two can do something. But again, right now, it's just, you got to bow down to Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. And I really got to thank them too for putting on a show and inspiring me again to maybe pick up my racket again and to play tennis, because that was really, the sport needed that. The sport did need that. So congratulations, Carlos, and chin up Jannik. That was really an exceptional final and is one of the best matches I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was honored to witness it live from start to finish. That is all I have for this men's final epic. And let me know your thoughts on it in the comments and how you think it rates as far as like all-time great matches and then comeback wins. Again, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I post grass court content. It's so crazy that we're now in the grass season and Carlos is supposed to be playing Queens next week. That's absolutely crazy. I hope for his sake, like, he probably will play, but bro is going to be like fried. Like, that's, the tennis schedule is so grueling. I hate it, but it is what it is. Anyways, merci beaucoup for your support. I really appreciate y'all so much for how much y'all have rocked with me this entire fortnight. The content, believe it or not, is not finished. I still have a few more Roland Garros type of videos cooking, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you all next time. See you all soon here on Christian's Court.